Hello and welcome to a very, very important discussion and a very urgent discussion. It's Save the Children's Changemaker series. And at stake right now is perhaps one of the most important questions facing us as a society, which is how do we protect a generation of the young ones, the school kids specifically? And more specifically, today's conversation is about how India Incorporated can unite or come together to help and protect this generation. And why are we talking about this? Well, obviously, it's because of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. It's been disastrous for many countries. Of course, it's been disastrous for India's poor. And the people who will most likely pay the biggest price, even amongst India's poor, are the children. Especially, as you know, most of the children in India who form a majority are from underprivileged backgrounds, and they don't have access to internet devices necessarily, or the internet even. And we face a situation, a grim situation, where decades of work, specifically in poverty alleviation, but also in education and health and other areas, where all this progress is being rolled back because of this pandemic. And not just internet devices and the availability of internet. It's also how do we empower schools to give the right education. And it's specifically important for girl children who, it seems, generally speaking, don't have as much opportunities or access to the internet as boys. And so thank you, Save the Children, for convening this extremely important and urgent conversation. It's going to be a packed evening. We have 7 speakers. And by the way, I'm HR Venkatesh. I'm a journalist with Boom, the fact-checking organization. I run a media literacy series called Media Buddhi. So today we have in our panel, we have Dipanwita Chakrabarti. She's the Regional Director, Corporate Social Responsibility, Asia Pacific at Cargill. We also have Sabina Baker, who's the CSR Head at Philips India Limited. We have Samir Tavre, who's a Program Manager at Lord's Foundation. We have Rohit Bahadur, who's a partner not-for-profit CSR Advisory and Sustainability at Grant Thornton. We have Rita Chatterjee, the administrator come principal of the APJ Education Trust in Kolkata. And we have Saleha, who is a child champion, youth advocate, and also someone whose own inspiring story has been told multiple times in the media, also in the book, We Are the Champions by Rashmi Bansal and Devendra Tak. And finally, we have Nidhi Pundhir, who's the director of HCL Foundation. She will be joining us. And before we do that, of course, we also have with us Yasmin Riaz, who's the Director of Resource Mobilization at Save the Children. And before I hand this over to Yasmin, a quick look at how this evening is going to unfold. Yasmin is going to set the context, and then we will also come to each of you. Saleha, हम Yasmin के बाद आपके पास आएंगे 2-3 minute के लिए, and then I will come to you all for opening remarks. So this way we can get everybody get started. If you can all keep your opening remarks to about 2 minutes each. The way I foresee this evening is going to unroll is 15 minutes will account for the introduction and opening remarks. We will have a discussion, especially on areas that have been surfaced during the remarks, in between, in the middle, and the end, another 2 minutes each to close out the session, including all the introductory remarks and concluding remarks. We will try to aim to keep this to a little under an hour or a little over an hour. And there you have it. We will have something like 3 15-minute chunks. So with that, I hand it over to you, Yasmin. Yasmin, if you can hear us, I think you'll need to unmute your mic.
Sorry, the classic mistake. Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. I think I'd like to start off by welcoming all the participants. Really glad that you all could make time. And I think we have a wonderful mix, some of our existing donors, some prospects who we have initiated conversations with, Grant Thornton, who's been with us, in doing a number of due diligence. They've done a fair number of audits. We have APJ Trust with us, who can also give us, relevant insights for education. So Venkat, like you started off, I think the problems have always existed in a developing country like India. We've had our fair share of problems, but what the pandemic has really brought to the forefront is, it has highlighted the problems, it's protracted the problems, and brought into focus some immediate immediate problems which need to be tackled here and now. We can't wait anymore to sort of move forward and take a lackadaisical approach. Having said that, I mean, you touched upon aspects of health. Health definitely is overwhelmed. Health systems are overwhelmed. Education is completely disrupted. For toddlers, even, they would be missing out on a milestone, in their growing up years. So there is going to be deeper, longer impact felt, which also needs to be addressed. So while the entire world and even a lot of us in India are focusing on the immediate problems that we're facing, the fatalities, so on and so forth, I think a longer term approach is what is needed. And from one end of the spectrum, while we're trying to protect the elderly, it's equally important to look at the other end of the spectrum and see how the future of India, children would also, are also getting impacted by this pandemic. So just to also let you know about how Save the Children has been tackling this issue, I think 100 years back when we started off around the Second World War, we started tackling the Spanish flu pandemic almost 100 years. So Save the Children does have the expertise in handling humanitarian crisis. I think the right kind of frameworks are in place for program design and implementation. Another aspect that the organization tends to focus on is we don't want to recreate the entire implementation cycle. How do we align with governments, with think tanks, with policymakers who already have a plan in place? How do you further that? How do you deepen impact by aligning your own?
Okay, it seems like we've lost Yasmin, but Yasmin there was just setting the context for this discussion, and we're all talking about how multiple stakeholders can come together and unite, and how we can work together. Before I call upon our panelists, Saleha,
The thinkers and the doers. But when it comes to actually getting a feel of what the beneficiary wants, I think there is a gap there. And that's where we believe that it's important to keep the community at the center and also keep child champions, children at the center of solving any problem. So we've, very actively believed in bringing children to the forefront while, putting together any solutions. And by virtue of that, we have created a lot of child champions within each and every thematic that we work on, whether it is health, whether it is child labor, education, any and every thematic area. We keep children at the center of it all, and think of the solutions around that. So I'm very happy to have Saleha here. I think I can pass the baton on to her to bring in a perspective about her journey with Save, and how she sees how she sees from a child's perspective what are the needs and what would be some of the solutions. So over to Saleha. Saleha?
Hi, yes, ma'am. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining Zoom live. मेरा नाम सलेहा है, मैं गोवंडी से हूँ और बेसिकली मैं एजुकेशन और मेंटल हाइजीन के ऊपर काम करती हूँ. जैसा कि मेरी दीदी ने 8 के बाद ड्रॉप आउट हो गई थी, उसने छोड़ दिया, उसके बाद उसकी शादी हो गई. तो मैं नहीं चाहती थी कि मुझे भी ये सारी हेल्थ प्रॉब्लम हो जो मेरी सिस्टर के साथ हुई. तो मैंने अपनी स्टडी के लिए पेरेंट्स को कन्विंस किया, क्योंकि हम जो चीज खरीद रहे हैं, अगर हम पहले अपने पेरेंट्स को अगर कन्विंस कर रहे हैं, देन अगर किसी से बात कर रहे हैं, तो हमारे पेरेंट्स ही हमको जो संभालते हैं. तो मैंने मेरे पेरेंट्स को कन्विंस किया और अपनी 8 के आगे की स्टडी कंप्लीट की. देन अभी मैं लास्ट ईयर ग्रेजुएशन में हूँ और साथ ही साथ में मैं मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन के 250 सेशंस ले चुके हैं. तो मैं चाहती हूँ कि मुझ जैसी और लड़कियां जो है मेरी कम्युनिटी में, वो और उभर के निकले और हमारे साथ ऐसे हर एक प्रोग्राम में ज्वाइन हुए. क्योंकि जब यूथ को कुछ अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलती है तो वो इजीली वो अपॉर्चुनिटी को ग्रैब करना चाहता है. अगर वो ग्रैब करके उस लेवल तक का जाना चाहता है कि जैसे अगर यूथ को किसी प्लेटफॉर्म पे, अगर हमें, जैसा मुझे सेव द चिल्ड्रन ने इतना मोटिवेट किया है, अगर एजुकेट नहीं होती यानी पढ़ ही नहीं होती तो आज मुझे ये प्लेटफॉर्म नहीं मिलता। तो मैं हर ये यूथ के लिए कहना चाहूंगी कि कितनी भी कठिनाई आ जाए, कठिनाइयों का सामना करके आगे बढ़ना हमें चाहिए। साथ ही में मैंने इतने सारे अचीवमेंट, मेरे पढ़ाई के साथ साथ मैंने बहुत सारे अचीवमेंट किए, जैसा कि मेरे घर में फैमिली में से कोई भी न्यूयॉर्क नहीं गया था, तो मैं अपने काम के थ्रू मैं अपना न्यूयॉर्क गई थी, वहां पे मैं अपना प्रेजेंटेशन दिया। तो बहुत लोग थे वहां पे जिनको बहुत अच्छा लगा, क्योंकि मुझे भी ऐसा डर लग रहा था कि अगर मुझे कुछ चीज नहीं आती, जैसे कि मुझे अच्छी तरीके से इंग्लिश नहीं आती, तो क्या मैं प्रेजेंटेशन अपना नहीं कर सकती? हमें हर चीज कोशिश करना चाहिए, अपनी ट्राई करना चाहिए। तो मैंने वहाँ प्रेजेंटेशन दिया और जो हमारा सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स होता है उसके बारे में जाना। और साथ ही साथ में मैंने सोचा कि मैं एक लड़की अपने गोवंडी से उठ के वहां पे गई हूँ, अपना प्रेजेंट करी, तो मुझे सी और 100 सालेहा यहाँ पे कम्युनिटी में क्रिएट करना है। तो मैंने और लोगों को गोल्स के बारे में बताने लगी यहाँ कम्युनिटी में, और ऐसे मेरे साथ अभी 10 लड़कियां हैं जो तैयार हो चुकी हैं। इसमें हर एक अपनी कहानियों को शेयर करती है और अपने हिम्मत उनकी मैं बढ़ाती हूँ, उनको आगे करने की कोशिश करती हूँ, क्योंकि बहुत लोगों के साथ इतनी सारी डिफिकल्टीज आती है। कभी भी हमें प्रॉब्लम का सामना करके आगे बढ़ना चाहिए, ये नहीं कि हमें उस स्टेज पे रुक जाना चाहिए। तो जैसे कि मैंने पढ़ी और मुझे बहुत सारे ट्रॉफीज मिले, जैसे कि यूथ की आवाज में मुझे पार्टिसिपेशन मिला। अभी मैं रिसेंटली मैंने टेडक्स टॉक दिया था, तो ये मुझे बहुत गर्व फील होता है कि मैं एज एक यूथ अपने गोवंडी से इतना अच्छा काम कर रही हूँ, तो साथ में और लड़कियों को लेके काम करूँ। तो हम सभी को ना यूथ को मिल के अपनी कम्युनिटी के लिए काम करना चाहिए, क्योंकि हम जो कम्युनिटी में रहते हैं, अगर वही कम्युनिटी के वॉलंटियर्स यूथ निकल के और इस मुद्दे पे काम करे, जैसे कि मैं एजुकेशन और मेंटल हाइजीन पे काम करती हूँ, तो इतनी सारी प्रॉब्लम्स लड़कियों को क्रिएट नहीं होगी। इसीलिए क्योंकि एक बार मैंने बॉयज के साथ भी मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन के ऊपर डिस्कशन किया, क्योंकि हम लड़कियां तो बहुत सारे बात जानते हैं, बहुत सारी लड़कियां होती है जिनको ये बारे में नहीं पता होता है, तो कुछ अलग मीनिंग में ले लेते हैं और लड़कियां जो है डर जाती। साथ ही में कोविड-19 की वजह से लॉकडाउन लगा है, बहुत सारी फैमिली है जिनको राशन की दिक्कत हो रही थी, और नेपाल जाने के लिए लड़कियां मैटर नहीं जाती, तो उन्हें हम सब लीडर्स वॉलंटियर्स से कम्युनिटी से निकल के उनकी हेल्प की। तो मुझे बहुत गर्व फील होता है कि मैं एज अ वॉलंटियर्स ऐसे भी सिचुएशंस में मैं दूसरों की हेल्प कर रही हूँ।
अच्छा, बहुत अच्छा लगा आपके बारे में सुनने, और वापस हम आएंगे आपके पास, बट अभी राइट नाउ लेट्स जस्ट मूव अक्रॉस टू गेट ओपनिंग रिमार्क्स फ्रॉम the other panelists. It's a great feeling to start off with Saleha's inspiring story. Deepanvita, I'm going to ask you to start, and after that it will be Sakina and Samir in that order. So it's over to you, Deepanvita.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity, and it's been so inspiring to listening to Saleha. And you know, in the opening, as I was reflecting on Saleha's words, I think the one thing that stands out is inspiration. And as we are talking about how does the India Inc. really has to gear up and stand up, I think always it's not because there is a pandemic, we are in the middle of a pandemic today or anything. All of us have had the privilege to be children at some point in time. And I think the one thing that is paramount today is what is the inspiration that we bring to the table. And one of the things that is so amazing about children is that they are supremely adaptable and resilient. And I feel like as we grow up as adults, we tend to lose that spirit a little bit. We become a little more risk averse, and then we tend to sort of go to things around fear psychosis and things like that, which tend to take us down. And I want to quote here a very renowned leader who was talking at a seminar, and he was asked, what do we do to raise our children well? And the answer that he gave was fascinating. He said, if you want to raise good children, just raise yourselves. And I think for me, that sums it all up. Obviously, we have to look at resources, we have to look at infrastructure, we have to look at how we come together, collaborate. But one of the things that I think is at the core, and we have seen that in this time of pandemic, is the human spirit. And we as adults really need to rise up and take it on board. And anything that we do for the future generation moving forward has to come from inspiration. So I'll just stop there with that thought.
Yes, and your thought made me feel that because children are so flexible, the focus of a lot of our work should be with young people and children. Sakina, your remarks?
Yeah, thank you so much for being a part of this very useful discussion. Maybe we are too late to have the discussion. We should have had discussion quite earlier, especially. I think our children in India, at least, are living in a very imperfect environment as it is. It's not only our children who are underprivileged.
Can you hear us, Sakina? It looks like we've lost
Migrant population, but we never thought about children. They do end up at the last mile. They do end up at the last priority. They have never been a part of our political and investment priority. So I think we need to come out of that shell and make sure that their development is not hanging from a thin thread. And a crisis like COVID, which is like India is prone to disasters. COVID is a very big disaster. But if you look at India, it is very much prone to floods, earthquakes. Where are children? What are the priorities that we give children during these disasters? I don't even think we talk about children. I don't even think we talk about normal children. Forget about children with disabilities. Forget about children with special needs. Are we even talking that to that level? So it is high time we talk about relooking at the policies that we have at the government level, because we can't do it. So the corporates can't do it alone. They have to collaborate with different stakeholders to make sure that the policies that have, there are numerous policies for children that have been driven for children, written for children, notified for children, are implemented in spirit and not just be there on paper. So I think it's a collaboration. Every corporate, whether it is at and the government and non-profit sector, which is doing wonderful during this current crisis, looking at all the people who have been victims of COVID. I think we have to sit together and make sure that we don't start from scratch, and we are there with full preparation if anything like this strikes. And we're there for our children. We're there for our children. We are there to safeguard their nutrition, their healthcare, their safety, their education. I think it's a good start. At least we are there somewhere, and we have reached some miles but we still need to go a long distance.
Thank you so much. Indeed, you did talk about collaboration with other stakeholders, and collaboration is emerging as not just an art, but a science and a craft. And there's a way to do it well. We'll get into it if we have time. It's over to you, Sameer, right now.
Thank you, Venkatesh. And first of all, salam to Sohail, actually, the way she spoke. It's amazing work that you're doing. And I'm Sameer, Program Manager at Lovelace Foundation. We're an independent foundation, and we work in apparel and garment supply chain to tackle child labor. And what we have seen is actually issue is very grave, especially the consequences of pandemic on children has doubled down due to loss of learning opportunities and economic stability. Last week, we heard actually one case from a partner from Madhya Pradesh that there were 100 children who were actually were trafficked for agricultural work, and 100 children they have been rescued. So that is one case. Actually, there might be many more cases where children are still, engaged in labor activities. What we are hearing from our partners on the ground, like Save the Children, Jan Sahas, Freedom Fund, that there is increased engagement of children in labor activities. That is one. Second, especially girl children, they are engaged in care work and household chores. And therefore, there is a great risk of food insecurity nutrition, medical treatment for children. And but I think for more importantly, what we realize is non-availability of child protection benefits and services, which were easily accessible before COVID, which is now challenging. So these are the actually couple of challenges we actually through our partners been hearing, and we believe that actually supply chain, where actually child labor from factory to farm labor has been rampant, that needs to be addressed, and therefore having a comprehensive approach is required to address this manifold problem. I think yeah, I'll stop here with this opening remarks and then I'll come to you.
Great to hear this perspective. Next up, I'm going to call on Nidhi Pundhir for what you have to say and your perspective, Nidhi. And there's a reason why we've left Rohit Bahadur and Rita Chatterjee for the end, because they also come in with an industry-specific perspective and in education-specific perspective. So we are slicing their experience and bringing in a different perspective. And so it's over to you, Nidhi, now.
Thank you, Venkatesh, and once again, greetings to our little champion panelist there, Saleha, and congratulations on being such a brave person that you are, Saleha. So I think we're discussing about children today, and again, it's an apt moment, and the brief that I had also in the times of COVID, when the country, completely got, in fact, the world is seeing a very different situation. We once again saw that children somewhere got little left out on the agenda. And if I look at the larger situation out there, it was very difficult initially for everybody to even track them back. And just now Samir spoke about children who are working children, children in most difficult circumstances, children living on streets, children living in slums. I think the situation isn't great if we look at from a child perspective. Also children who have parents and children who have economic means, for them the schools are shut down. So it's a very different scenario as far as the youth and the young child is concerned in the current context. Having said that, I think even before pre-COVID, most of us who have a huge focus on working with the younger population, we know the difficulties which children face, the socioeconomic divide which impacts them directly or indirectly, child protection issues which are rampant. So while we do have best of policies, I would say we have ICPS came up in the country around a decade ago and has been functioning. The education system has also gone through quite a bit of reform. But then, of course, the reach to all children and the even simple dreams like education for all, health for all, nutrition for all, I think they do remain compromised. So one of the things which I could again, say here, have working in this field and especially child rights for so many years, is that the convergence part between the non-government and the government and education, people who are on ground, and children themselves through child participation mechanisms. I mean, we do a lot of child participation work, but does it really percolate till the policy level? Till the is there a good ear for children, so as to say? So I think those things, there's a lot to do. I know Save the Children for last 100 years has been on this mission of actualizing child rights. There are other organizations out there. At ITSIL Foundation, we make a very, I would say, very, very serious effort and attempt that more than 40% of our program beneficiaries are children, and rather I call them as program participants. And there is a whole lot of work which is currently happening during COVID to be able to. So one thing which I am really appealing to all people who are working on ground and who were in touch with children pre-COVID, that trace them back, because we have been working with children in very difficult situations pre-COVID. Many of our centers were running inside slums. Children who were in the school education system, they suddenly, they were faced with this pandemic, and many of the children had to leave the cities, or migration happened. Government schools in the rural areas are also vacant. So NGOs which are on ground, the CSRs which are on ground, government system which is on ground, it is very, very critical that we trace every child back and we bring them into the mainstream, because even pre-COVID we knew that there's such a heavy dropout, but through various programs that we run at the community level or at the school level, we knew that these children one way or the other are connected. So, also from child protection perspective, it's very important for everybody to reach out to their own cohorts and check on their well-being first, because that's the most critical part as of now. They must be going through a completely different what do you call phase of their life. No, we are going through such a different phase with this pandemic. Imagine what that young child is going through. So, Saleha also talked about lockdown. Saleha also talked about her work. And if I were to, I think there was a question which I don't know if you'll come later about the three priorities. Maybe I can speak about that later. But um, the critical aspect in the current times is well-being and psychosocial support for every child. And the civil society organizations, the CSRs have, and government of course, have a huge role to bring the child back on agenda and trace all of them back. That I'm reiterating that point, and bring them into some kind of um, regular rosters and registers, and ensure that somebody is taking care of their well-being in these tough times.
Right. Thank you for that, Nidhi. Rita, as an administrator and principal, and someone who runs schools across the country, I mean, what is your perspective, especially for the underprivileged children who are being left out, who are a majority of this country?
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thanks. We have schools in Kolkata and Bhubaneswar, and in Kolkata, we are on Park Street. Now, Park Street, if you all know, is one of the most cosmopolitan areas of Kolkata. But right behind the school, there are about three slums. And I would like to really compliment Saleha here and tell everybody that the inequities that these children face and the lack of opportunities that continue to endanger the lives and future of millions of these underprivileged children around the world is really a big challenge. And we have a program in our school wherein the library welcomes the underprivileged children from the nearby slums. And, it is very, very challenging. And it's an uphill task to first understand that children are, yes, very resilient, and yes, they're very adaptive, and they welcome change. And we have to really garner support from civil society to be able to help these kids. Compared to children growing up in wealthiest households, children who come to schools can afford education, the poorest children are twice as likely to kind of vanish before reaching the age of 5, twice as likely to be stunted, 5 times as likely to be out of school. Girls and children with disabilities are from minority groups, especially, they are so quickly marginalized and excluded. Adolescent girls, unfortunately, remain illiterate than adolescent boys. And 1 in 10 girls under the age of 20, they have suffered sexual violence. Children with disabilities are not even considered in this. Therefore, the new challenges make these vulnerable children even more vulnerable, threatening to roll back whatever progress organizations like Save the Children might have made for the most disadvantaged children and young people. Therefore, I think that to make these children useful and productive as they grow up, to give them a dignified living, civil society has really to wake up, The path forward will be challenging. To meet the desired goals, progress over the next 15 years will have to accelerate, outpacing the rate of progress that we have achieved during the millennium. And that's my comment to start with. Thanks
Right.
for calling me here.
That also sets up the context well. Rohit, finally we come to you, and not only wearing your hat as someone who works at Grant Thornton, but also someone who is well versed in the industry, the trends, and especially companies working towards the upliftment of children specifically. What is your perspective? And maybe I will use what you're saying as a kind of setting to take this discussion forward.
So thank you, Venkatesh, and thank you for the opportunity. I'll be wearing a consultant hat, and drawing on some trends, etc., from the experience of having worked with various clients, etc. And being a chartered accountant, I'll set the context by some facts and figures. So really speaking, if you look at the overall, basically the CSR spend or budgets, etc., it's quite interesting to note, and everybody does know about this, that 35% of the overall CSR spend is actually going towards education. Now, if you take out the fact that adult education could be a small component of that, there is a significant amount of fund flow or focus for companies on education and hence on children. Unfortunately, there's not much data, and we don't really track CSR trends by beneficiary type. So when this COVID pandemic actually came through, many of the corporates actually looked at their CSR budgets, got additional allocations, and spend that money really on the immediate relief work, that is distribution of food, PPE kits, etc. Now that we're actually going to the rehabilitation phase, I think it's very critical, and I would personally like to see many corporates actually focus on what are the basic needs of the families within the communities that they actually already have programs in. So we all understand, and many of the other panelists have alluded on, the complexity of the issue. However, I would like to see corporates do a fresh needs assessment to analyze these complex needs of children within the communities, within their own partner NGOs, and the programs that they're actually running. Secondly, we all know that very little of that spend has been towards promotion of sports, etc. And I think irrespective of the COVID phase, and now more so because of COVID, it's very critical that there be a focus on life skills and on promotion of sports, etc. Because these would really help children, get out of the mental, psychological issues, etc. And lastly, before I conclude my opening remarks, I think the sentiment is right for collaboration. And we all tend to, get into that error of thinking about only some of the very structured companies. But really, there are many, many small companies, and I think a greater and a deeper impact towards children can be got, if companies collaborate. And I would personally like to propagate an agenda where 25% of every company's budget has been reserved towards, our future generation, which is our children. And I'll hand the mic over to you, Venkatesh, with these remarks.
Thank you very much. All those facts also setting the context up very nicely. I'm going to focus on a couple of areas that have surfaced during all your remarks. One of this is the need for collaboration outside, not just within the fraternity or the CSR fraternity, but with other stakeholders, and also the immediate, next steps that need to be taken. You did mention rehabilitation, Rohit. So from, taking that forward, Samir, I'd like to ask you, rehabilitation-wise, do you see, from your perspective, that this is something that all other companies and also your perspective, is this what we're focusing on, and what are the big problem areas? And after that, I will come to you, Sakina, more on this collaboration tangle. But first to you, Samir.
Yeah, thank you, Venkatesh. One thing I agree with actually what Rohit said, collaboration and funding as well. If you see the actually government spending on child protection, it's less than 1%. And what we have been advocating and trying to establish a place is that in line with gender budgeting, government of India should have actually child budget as well. In few states like Kerala and Assam, they have actually prepared child budget. On the similar lines, there should be central and state level child budget specifically allocated where child protection related, child promotion, participation related budget and activities are clearly outlined. That is first, that needs to be clearly outlined. That is one. Second, when we say actually rehabilitation, the problem is actually we don't know what is the real-time data is. So that problem we need to unfold somewhere, because as during COVID also what we have seen is the ASHA workers, ANM, who used to collect information, they were actually involved in COVID response systems. Therefore, right now, we don't know how many children might have actually, because of malnourishment, have died, or how many are affected. So that real-time data is required for policy formulation. And third point I would like to highlight, Venkatesh, is that anything we need to do that needs to be localized in the sense local level PRIs, local level government machineries, and immediate stakeholders, they should come together and develop a comprehensive plan to ensure rehabilitation and monitoring of actually government programs. And why I'm saying local level, because they are very close to the ground, they know the realities, and they are in better position to come up with a plan. Therefore, the thrust should be actually how to promote these localized interventions to promote and sustain the rehabilitation of children. One example I can give you, and then I'll hand it over to you. For example, cases of actually migrant workers and interstate child labor. So there is a lack of coordination between source and destination districts. Let's say children working in Jaipur factories are rescued by the labor department, and if the children are from Bihar, there is no coordination between labor departments. The problem lies there. How to actually promote this interstate coordination among departments is a challenge. And therefore, I'm suggesting that this localized level actually interventions where district authorities and PRIs are involved in promoting child rights is important and need of the hour. Thank you, Venkatesh. Over to you.
Okay, those are four very interesting points. Each could be an hour-long discussion on itself. And one thing I did take note is we don't have enough data, which is what Rohit was also saying, that we need to afresh look at what the needs are at this point in time, just to figure out what corporates can do and whether they can work together. My question then to Sakina to start with, and I'll also come to you, Nidhi, afterwards, is there a collaboration problem? And when you mentioned, of course, Sakina, that it's not just collaboration, within, but also with other stakeholders. Our organizations, for example, Save the Children, are nodal organizations that could do this kind of collaboration increasingly as well going forward. Already they bring together other organizations. Where do you see this collaboration part of the puzzle going forward?
I think Venkatesh, it's very imperative. I think we can see it now currently in a lot of sectors that you cannot work without collaboration. Collaboration is the future. That is given. Why I'm saying it, because even if CSR gives us an edge from other countries, because we have a mandate to do CSR, we have a mandate to spend a certain amount of money, we can't do it in silos. What is happening when we started CSR in the country? Everybody was doing their piece. They were doing their own pieces, and nobody was talking to other one. So a lot of people were starting from scratch, and so a lot of people were reinventing the wheel, but there was no talk in between. I'm talking about the corporates here, though they used to talk about implementing agencies, non-profit organizations. Where the discussion started happening when things came out 2-3 years down the line, how the corporates are spending their funds, where they are spending their funds. Are these funds sufficient to take care of the larger population that we are dealing with, or are they even sustainable? Is it creating a sustainable solution? So if we don't collaborate, we are really going to face a black wall few years down the line. We cannot sustain it without the government, which has the scale. We cannot sustain it non-profit organizations, which has the reach. And I completely agree with Samir on making it localized. Non-profit organizations are biggest drivers in making sure that the policies that we have by the government are implemented in spirit at the local level. That's how the gap is going to get minimized. That's how we are going to make sure that all stakeholders, whether it's the corporates, civil society, or the government, is doing their bit in making sure that the children are catered to. They are given the rights and the services that are meant to be given to them, that are meant to be given to our future generation. So I think a collaboration is definitely on the cards.
Right. Okay. Nidhi, what would you have to say, add to that?
Well, again, I wouldn't say that collaboration is an issue, honestly, because if you are able to strategize it right, and if you're able to have, I would say, clarity in terms of the agenda, that what exactly one is looking for when you want to collaborate. So, for example, one would, reach. I mean, having done a good situation assessment, I think that's critical. One must be, doing a very scientific needs assessment and situation assessment, and it has to be a ground up approach. It's not something that we decide at a national level and the same thing will work, let's say, in West Bengal, and the same will work in Jammu Kashmir, because the situation is extremely different. Children are going through very different realities given the kind of diverse country we are. So that's one very critical component. And collaboration in the current times, what I have seen a significant change, I have also seen, especially in our country, especially, is that there is a very positive vibe amongst the government officers. There are young bureaucrats now in the system. It is possible to go and talk to them. In fact, they are also concerned, they are also worried, police is worried, district administration is concerned, they are also looking for innovations, NGOs have some ideas. So the role that corporates and the CSR players actually have been very capable, are very capable of doing, and some of us take it very seriously, that we actually bring everybody around the table, and we've been able to sign memorandum of understandings after giving a very clear situation update to the local duty bearer from their area. And that's where, the investments that we make, some pre-investments about studying the situation and making it very open and clear, and then we invite the civil society, the NGOs, the individuals, the district administration to come together and work on an issue. The problem is not having the right agenda and not having children on the agenda. I think that's the big problem. That are children on the agenda at all of development, be it voting agenda, or be it, the larger urban development planning when it is happening, whole lot of migration issues that we are facing. Where are children on that agenda, and who's thinking about them? Because they are not the ones, who are possibly giving votes and making an opinion there. So that is where a lot of work still needs to happen. I know many of us who've been working on child rights for quite some time, we've always been having this the sustainable development goals. If I look at the 16.2, the child protection agenda, we still have a long way to go. We still see children begging on streets. We still see many children left out of the main education system. However, a lot of work has happened. Awareness has also been brought in. There's a lot of positive will, but with COVID again, we would need to redo a lot of it. We would need to change the entire system as well. And the other thing is, also children is not like one big group. They have to be divided into the 0 to 6. The young child has very different needs. The adolescent has very different needs, and transition from childhood to youth is another sector altogether. So we haven't faced honestly any issues in terms of collaboration with other CSRs, with government, with NGOs. Of course, there are very good partners out there, with children themselves. Agenda setting takes time, and that
Right.
is very important.
Yes, that is a valuable perspective. Thanks for that. Before I go to other panelists, I also want to go to Saleha once again. Saleha, हम कोलैबोरेशन और कोऑपरेशन के बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं, पर जैसे रोहित ने बताया था कि नॉट जस्ट स्कूलिंग बट जो फिजिकल एक्सप्रेशन है और मनोवैज्ञानिक दबाव होता है, मेंटल टेंशन होता है इस कोविड पैंडेमिक के कारण में, इसके लिए भी थोड़ा हम ध्यान देना चाहिए। ये ऐसे तो ये कह रहे थे। आपका सलाह क्या होगा? सलेहा, आप अगर सुन पा रहे हैं, अनम्यूट करके आप बोलिए प्लीज। थैंक यू। आपका माइक म्यूट है अभी।
हाँ सर, बोलिए क्वेश्चंस। एक्चुअली नेटवर्क प्रॉब्लम था।
अच्छा, नहीं वही रिपीट कर लेता हूँ। बस ये पूछ रहा था कि नॉट जस्ट स्कूलिंग बट मेंटल टेंशन को थोड़ा कम करने के लिए, उसके लिए भी थोड़ा कंसंट्रेशन देना चाहिए, ऐसे कह रहे थे। आपका पर्सपेक्टिव या आपका सलाह क्या होगा?
हेलो, एक्चुअली सर आपकी ना आवाज बहुत ब्रेक हो रही है।
ठीक है, मैं थोड़े वक्त में आ जाता हूं आपके पास। लेट मी जस्ट मूव ओवर टू some of our other panelists. Dipandita, what would you say? I mean, we've so far covered a few areas. We've also covered the need for agenda setting as one of the priority areas. What is your perspective?
Yeah, hi, thanks, Venkatesh. And I think one of the key factors that, as we have seen as an organization, as part of Cargill, because food security and nutrition is such an important agenda for us, being a food and ag organization and working through the entire space and the entire value chain of food and ag products, also in the space of animal nutrition and so forth, is the fact that the agenda of nutrition is such a key factor, which kind of oftentimes gets a little sidelined. And I'll just probably share a little story that happened during the COVID time. So we support a school in the NCR region, and we've been supporting the school for a very long time now, probably about almost a decade. And the school had moved to digital learning for the children, and the teachers were constantly following up with kids. They were having through WhatsApp and platforms like Zoom, etc. But along the line, within a week's time, the teachers were experiencing that the children would not respond to the phone calls and to the lessons that were given to them. So it just started to become very, very sporadic as they were trying to reach out to the kids. And I think on a Friday morning, it was happening from Monday through Friday. And on a Friday morning, I think it just struck the teacher that there is something is not right. So they called up a couple of children and tried to ask what happened. And initial reaction of the kids were, no, nothing. We had network issues, or we had we couldn't complete our task because of some reason or the other. But then it was not convincing enough. And then on probing for a little while, what the teachers learned, and in fact, there was this child who actually started to cry, and she said that, "Mummy, hame khana nahi deti hai." And the teacher was like, "Oh, Mummy khana nahi deti hai." So then she stopped there, and then I think the same story came about from quite a few such children. And then they spoke to the parents, and it so happened that this parents of these children had obviously lost their means of livelihood, because a lot of them are working as domestic help, or running a little food shop somewhere, which are all impacted because of the lockdown and stuff. And therefore the parents said that we are saving the food from what we can, and therefore we are just giving them food once in a day, and therefore the child is going hungry the entire time, and therefore they were obviously not able to concentrate anywhere else. And then we we got a SOS call from from the school teachers, and then within the next 12 hours we were able to arrange ration kits for all of those families whose children went to this school, about 300 families, etc. So the reason I wanted to say that this is a very small little example but this has a bigger connotation, because this has a multiplier effect. It would have happened in so many different places. And one of the things that is really concerning here is that the children who go to school as part of the government's school meal program, they get a meal in the school as as a lunch and some breakfast, etc. But now with that situation not being prevalent, and with the parents significantly facing livelihood issues and reverse migration, and there are so many such things going on, this is taking a huge hit. So while the children have already been in the middle of, there is a lack of dietary diversification. We know that in the children of India, there is acute lack of nutritious food that they eat. But now with this, the entire situation has kind of just rippled and has gone to a different level altogether. So one of the things that we are thinking about as Cargill and working through with our partners and the communities where we operate, is to see how do we really address that very, very foundational issue with the children. And a lot of these kids that we work with, and we've been working with them across the country where we have our operations and our communities. I think this is something that has been at the front and center as we are looking at the recovery phase for COVID, as well as a rehab phase, is how do we integrate that and who do we partner with, and what is the strategy that we look at, and how do we collaborate, how do we bring in stakeholders together. We've been working on some stakeholder mapping on this, and one of my co-panelists really alluded it very, very right, that there is a very, very imminent need to understand the situation on the ground. So a situation analysis, a need analysis, which is very, very localized, is going to be of such paramount importance. And working with the community, the local government, and all of the machinery that coexists in the ecosystem, including the parents of the children, bringing them together in the conversation, I think is going to be very, very important. It's just super complex as we operate in the environment, but that's something that we are focusing on, and very happy to sort of have this conversation with the rest of the panelists and people who are listening in to this telecast today. Thank you.
Indeed, very, very, very complex issues that are being surfaced. And of course, it's not something that one can address in maybe just one conversation, which is why this is known as the series, the Save the Children series conversation. I want to start wrapping things up. I'm mindful of your time as well. And so I will come to those I haven't come to so far. But the idea here is to think about the next right thing, or the next first thing that we ought to be doing right now as we conclude our remarks. And I'd like to start with you, Rita Chatterjee. What is the next right thing we can do right now? Rita, you will need to unmute your mic.
Okay. As one of the panelists very correctly said, that nothing for the children without the children. So therefore, one of the most important things we need to do is creating youth advocacy programs, wherein the youth plays an instrumental role in creating solutions and grassroots level planning for the changes which will impact the sustainable growth, such as youth councils, which are an integral part of the planning and execution aspect along with policymakers. I have seen some of the young people over here taking up students and training them, and they've been encouraged by the Youth Council program. So I think it's essential that we do that. We need gender responsive programming. And like we all have known of child marriages, gender-based violence has increased during this COVID pandemic times. We need to provide quality maternal antenatal, postnatal care, and improving nutrition, education, menstrual hygiene management, definitely. We need to deepen our focus on empowering disadvantaged adolescent girls to improve their well-being with multiplier effects for their families, communities, and societies. It would be nice if we could emphasize on social research to create a database for future framework for reopening of more schools. RTE, of course, has worked, but we need to implement that at the ground level. And we need to have unhindered early childhood developmental support. With that, I wish the program all the best, and I hope that we'll be able to, be optimistic and take on developmental work for the children in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. सलेहा, आप सुन पा रहे हैं अभी? आप
Yes, sir, बिल्कुल.
अच्छा, तो सलेहा, हम तो बात कर रहे हैं कि अभी परिस्थिति को थोड़ा बेहतर करने के लिए पहला चीज क्या करना चाहिए?
जैसा कि सर अभी तो हमारे यहाँ पे जो चिल्ड्रंस है, जो बच्चे हैं, उनको बहुत सारी दिक्कतों का सामना करना पड़ रहा है, जो कि हमारे यहाँ पे छोटी छोटी इस कम्युनिटीज में छोटी स्कूल्स थी, और जो फैमिली है जो पुअर है, इतना पैसे वाले नहीं है, तो कई कई घरों में मोबाइल नहीं है, तो बहुत सारे चिल्ड्रंस जो है वो प्रॉब्लम्स क्रिएट हो रही कि बोल रहे हैं जूम कॉल पे मीटिंग होगी बच्चों की, व्हाट्सएप पे वीडियोस भेजेंगे, यहाँ वीडियोस भेजेंगे, तो वो बहुत सारी प्रॉब्लम जो आ रही है बच्चों को, तो फैमिली है जो वो बहुत डिस्ट्रैक्ट हो जा रही है कि हम किस तरह से बच्चों की हेल्प कर पाए। तो इस समय में मैं जैसा होता है कि मैं बच्चों को किस तरह से मैं सिखा सकूं, तो मैं ट्राई करती हूँ कि बहुत सारी फैमिली तक का पहुंच पाऊँ और इस बात को शेयर करूँ। तो जैसा कि साथ में लड़कियों को भी बहुत सारी जैसा कि लॉकडाउन में की बहुत सारी प्रॉब्लम्स हो रही है, उनको भी लड़कियां अपनी बात जो है बाहर जाके खुल के बात नहीं कर पा रही है, घर में रह रही है, तो ऐसी बहुत सारी दिक्कतों का सामना करना पड़ रहा है।
हाँ जी, आप ये बिल्कुल सही कहा आपने, और इसको हम प्रायोरिटी लिस्ट में रखेंगे. ऑलरेडी वी हैव हैड अबाउट 4 or 5 main areas that have come up. Rohit, I know you've been waiting for a while, so I'm going to come to you next. What is really the next right thing that we can be doing?
Venkatesh, I very strongly feel that besides the child, there should be a positive emotional connect with the caregiver. So as Nidhi very rightly mentioned that you have to see children in different age groups differently. I mean, they have different needs, but what should be common across all age groups is that they should at least have one caregiver. And I've heard some brilliant stories from the field where the teachers are pitching in because the parents are so stressed. The teachers are pitching in to be that caregiver. So I think if everybody ensures that at least each child, irrespective of the age, has a caregiver, and the programs have a positive emotional connect with that caregiver, whether it be a parent or an elder sibling, or a youth champion, or a teacher. I think it would be very, very useful in the current situation because the needs are very complex, as Dipandita very rightly mentioned, and you will not be able to solve the puzzle. The circular pillars of well-being, safety, health, education, these are all interconnected, and it's very difficult to pinpoint which child would need what first, to come out, come out of this crisis, which is going to be with us for some time now.
Yes. Thanks for those comments. Samir, I'm going to come to you next. I mean, how do we all come together? What is the next right thing we can do, especially so that we can have a multiplier effect with all the companies coming together, in as effective a manner as possible?
Right. Thank you. My colleague says always, we need orchestra people. Orchestra people will play different roles. And that is something we need to actually build, where with trust and common understanding, that we have this common minimum programs, where the larger objective is to definitely safe and secure actually access to education and development to children's. But I think what I can suggest is two things. Is really we need to change mindset, because in India there are 10 million child laborers, which was a decade ago data. What I'm trying to say, tell you here is, people needs to actually acknowledge that problem exists and system is broken. We need to fix it. How to fix it? That can be actually discussed and debated. But point is, we need to acknowledge first. And second, the practices that are existing, that needs to be corrected immediately. I mean, like industries, they should respect human rights and child rights. They should not employ any child anywhere, or even in the supply chain. That sort of pledges they should actually take openly and publicly. That will send actually positive message, I believe. And one example I can give you is, we can start with that, social protection to all. What COVID had exposed, pre-existed vulnerabilities and discrimination underlined, that had exposed. So I think one action could be, social protection to all, including children's. That could be a common, intervention area for all donors. Actually, they can actually build programs together. So yeah, I'll conclude saying that, trust and that is something will hold this orchestra together to work actually and promote child rights in India.
Okay, I have a question now for, these are about 7 areas that have surfaced out. Nothing without the children, as Rita Chatterjee said, gender responsive programming. We need a database, we need agenda setting, we need, focus on caregivers as well. We need to better collaboration. We need a common minimum program, or if you don't want to get use other terms, political terms, we need a common basic program, is what you said. Dipanvita, what would you say? Would you be able to add to this list? Would you be able to augment some of the points in this list as the next right thing to be doing?
I would just echo the co-panelists, and I think one of the points that I'd also like to bring forth here is the aspect of safety. I think that's very very important, and we have heard stories of how with the lockdown there have been the upsurge in cases of domestic violence, abuse in the households, and I think it just goes back to getting the right kind of data and understanding the situation. So I think that's a great area for collaboration. See, as corporations, as development organizations, we all bring our strengths to the table, and I think that is quite a formidable force to reckon with. And if we can sort of play to each one of us can play to our strength and contribute to a cause together, I think that will be super powerful. That's why I think everybody in the group has echoed the same sentiment, and I totally concur with that. Thank you.
Right. I'll come to you, Sakina, for the last word on this. What would you say is the next right thing that we should be doing?
See, I think a lot of things are they're happening on the ground. It's just the scale that it needs. The most important thing for us to actually reach out to children at the moment is providing the emotional and mental support. We usually ignore the most important part of what the children would be going through these crises. So here, it doesn't matter what economic background the child is from. There is a lot of emotional and mental stress that they are going through. How are we going to address that? How are we going to make sure that psychologically the children don't suffer because they're facing something which is beyond control of anyone, or not their parent, their caregivers, or the institutions that they support. So I think we have to ensure that besides taking care of the nutrition, education, safety, we should make sure that their mental and emotional well-being is also taken care of at the same time.
Indeed, mental and emotional well-being, in addition to all the other challenges that are before us. Yasmin, I'm going to come to you for your concluding remarks on this, but several issues have been surfaced. Obviously, this is not something that we can all just talk about once and move on. This is a conversation that needs to be had again and again, complemented with action on the ground. And so it's over to you now.
Thank you, Venkatesh. I think that was a very interesting discussion, extremely insightful. I think it's been proven beyond doubt the importance about how there needs to be focus on children's rights, on children's well-being as well, and going beyond what is just visible to the eye. You know, in terms of roti, kapra, makan, it's not just about education, health, you know, child poverty. It's also about protection. It's about safety. It's about emotional and psychological well-being. You know, a lot of this may not be visible. So I think some very important points came through. So I'd like to thank all the panelists for that. And also what came, you know, what is already there and is being discussed. And I think the pandemic has more than proven this, that businesses cannot succeed without, you know, when societies fail. It has to be a collaborative approach. We are all part of the same ecosystems. So to sort of continue to exist in a good manner, it's important to look at overall value creation, not just for the businesses, but for the communities, for the environment. So a very holistic approach probably is required. And a lot is spoken and you know, about shared value and collective impact. But to bring about that shared value, I think it's important to co-create. It's important to have a shared vision. It's important to you know, set shared goals, and more importantly, bring about a shared passion to deliver that shared value at the end of the day. I think I'd just like to leave with that, leave that thought behind.
Right.
And just to also add, I think it's important, you know, to showcase some of the partnerships that we have. I mean, innovation. How do we bring in innovation? Innovation plays a huge role. I think we have a fantastic partnership with Philips, which sort of showcases that aspect. Long-term view. You know, I think we've been partnering with Laudis Foundation for almost 5 years, taking care of child labor aspects. So long-term, you know, focus to deliver outcomes and not just put a tick in the box for quarterly results. I think that becomes very, very important. And more importantly, a very holistic approach, which Nidhi spoke about. So HCL, when we've been partnering with HCL, they go just beyond looking at one specific thematic. So, you know, a multi-thematic approach, long-term, sustainable, and of course, collaborating on all fronts, not just with the people who deliver on the ground and the people who make resources available, but how do you sort of align with government system, with policymakers? I think it involves the entire ecosystem, so to speak. So I think, and overall, a very good discussion, and I'd like to thank all the participants, and thank you, Venkatesh, for holding this entire event together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone, and thank you to the participants as well. And I would encourage you all to follow them. You will find them on social media and social media. I'm pretty sure also their email ID is in the chat. So please follow them, and also follow the work of Save the Children. They're doing very, very important work. There is also, you can find out more about stories of people and children like Saleha in the book We Are the Champions, co-authored by Devendra Tak and Rashmi Bansal. So there are many ways in which to get started. Even I'm speaking as not just someone who works as a journalist, but as a citizen of this country. Thank you all very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saleha.
Thank you, Saleha. Thank you so much.
Saleha,
Thank
thank you so much.